Hi folks, it's Nate from Konnected here. Since I started Konnected a few years ago, I've gotten a bunch of questions from all of you asking, how can I make my old wired alarm system smart without disabling my existing keypads and possibly keeping my existing professional monitoring service? You want to keep your existing wired alarm system, but just add some smart features on top of it that'll let you monitor all the zones, monitor if it's been armed and disarmed, monitor if it's been triggered, and even arm and disarm it remotely. So if you're in that situation, then this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating with a Honeywell / Ademco VISTA system like this one. There's a similar one in my house, and I'm going to show you using the second generation Konnected Alarm Panel Interface kit, how you can tap into all of the wired zones and tap into the programmable outputs to know when the alarm has been triggered, and also arm and disarm it remotely with a relay module. The Konnected Alarm Panel Interface kit, it comes in a box like this. This is available now on our website, konnected.io, and we can ship it worldwide. So inside the box, for every 6 zones that you purchase, there will be 2 connected modules. The first is the Konnected Alarm Panel board with low voltage trigger output. This has the built-in Wi-Fi chip, and this is the brains of your system. And the second is the Konnected Alarm Panel Interface module. And this has the special circuitry that lets you tap into the wired zones on the Ademco or any wired alarm system panel. Now inside the box you'll also find a power adapter and an accessory box that has things like mounting hardware and a relay module and some wires to help you hook things up. So today I'm here in my new house in my master bedroom closet where my old alarm system panel is installed. This is a ADT branded Safewatch Pro, which is really just a rebranded Ademco VISTA 20, I think, 20p. Ademco VISTA is one of the most common alarm panels in the United States and probably worldwide. So many of you might have one very similar to this in your home. So you see I've got a bunch of wires coming out of my wall going into this board here. This is the main logic board of the old alarm system. And then on the inside door, usually of the cabinet, usually you'll see a wiring diagram, and this will help you to understand how many zones you have and help you to know where to plug the wires in. So I'm going to walk you through that with the Ademco VISTA or the Safewatch Pro. And if you have a different alarm system, it's going to be very similar. Konnected Alarm Panel Interface module works with pretty much any wired alarm system that's out there, but I can't obviously do a video demo for all of them. The Konnected Alarm Panel board has a built-in Wi-Fi chip, so this is going to communicate via Wi-Fi to the cloud or to your smart home hub, which is on your network, to communicate the status of your sensors back and forth. And the interface board has special circuitry to allow you to tap into the sensors on your traditional panel without the traditional panel even knowing that it exists. Alright, let's take a closer look here at the wiring diagram. It is capable of up to 8 zones, which are labeled here, zones 1 through 8. Now, if I take a closer look at the actual panel, I can zoom in there for you. I can see that only 6 of those 8 zones are actually in use. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in this case, I have a 6-zone alarm system. If I wanted to just monitor the 6 zones that are on my alarm panel, I could sync the status of those sensors, for example, my doors, windows, and motion sensors, to my smart home platform so that I can monitor the state of those sensors and trigger automations based off of that. But I'm going to take this a step further and install 2 connected modules for a total of 12 zones and 2 interface modules to interface it with this panel, so that I have 2 extra zones to tap into these programmable output pins that are on the Ademco VISTA. And that's going to give me more information from the panel, for example, if the system is armed and if the system is triggered. So I can sync that status to my smart home platform. That lets me monitor from anywhere if my alarm system has been triggered without paying the monthly fee. Then we can even take it a step further and use a relay module like this and a free zone on my panel that's programmed as a key switch to be able to make a trigger to basically turn on and off or arm and disarm the alarm system remotely. Okay, let's talk about mounting and positioning. We're going to use these jumper wires that come with your kit to connect the terminals from the interface module to the zones on the traditional panel. And they're literally going to tap into that signal. So we want the interface module to be mounted pretty much as close as we can to this panel, and then the Wi-Fi connected alarm panel board can be a little bit further away and preferably outside the metal container. So I've already put my mounting standoffs here for the interface panel, and you just want to make sure that the terminals are facing the direction of the traditional panel so we can easily make the wired connections. So let's mount this guy in here first, and then we can start wiring things up. Now this ribbon cable is what connects the interface module to the connected alarm panel that has the Wi-Fi capability built in. This is 30 centimeters long, so you have a little bit of room to play with. And what I'm going to do is just punch out one of these knockouts, like that, and then run the ribbon cable through here. There's a notch on it, so it only goes one way, so you know that you got it in the right way. And then put it into the connected alarm panel, which can then be mounted up here, or perhaps on here or on the side once we get the feet on there. I'm not going to permanently mount this yet because we might need to move it around, so I'm just going to leave that up there for now, and it's not plugged in yet, so that's fine. Alright, now before we start wiring things up and touching the wires, I think it's pretty important to disconnect the power to the traditional panel first. We don't want to short anything out, and also as we're kind of unscrewing the screws, it's going to cause a fault on the traditional system if the power is still active. So my power transformer is over here above the door. So I'm just going to unplug that and let that hang down there, and then pop out one of the battery terminals. There we go. And this thing is, now it's completely shut off. So we can safely start touching the wires and stuff. Okay, now the first step is to connect these two larger black terminals on the interface module to the auxiliary power output of the traditional panel. This is very important and required. This is called a voltage reference. It's not actually going to draw power from the panel, but it is taking a reference voltage from the operating voltage on this alarm panel. So we do need to connect the ground and the VREF, or voltage reference, to the negative and positive aux output on the traditional panel, respectively. And if you're unsure as to what those terminals are, look at the diagram as a reference, and on the VISTA panels that would be terminal 4 and 5. 4 is the negative and 5 is the positive. Definitely do not connect it to terminal 1 and 2. That's the AC power input, and if you do that, it'll be fried. So don't do that. We're looking at the 12 volt auxiliary power output, which on the VISTA panels is terminals 4 and 5. On other brands of panels, it'll be something different possibly, but it's usually labeled aux power output or plus 12 volts or something like that. DC power only, what we're working on. So I'm going to just take two of my jumper cables and the little connected screwdriver that comes with my kit, and first loosen these terminals all the way first, and that opens them up. These black terminals are a little different in that the screw itself does not go up and down. And then we'll put these two into the ground and voltage reference respectively. I know my hand's in the way. And I've got the white in the voltage reference and the black in the ground. My aux output is already is pretty full. There's a bunch of power, there's some motion sensors on here, a keypad. It's probably powering this wireless transmitter and things like that. But that's okay. You should be able to kind of squeeze it in there and then tighten it back down. And then this one is for the positive loosen it a little bit, squeeze that wire in there, and tighten it back down. There we go. That's my voltage reference for this panel. Okay, now it's as simple as simply just connecting zones 1 through 6 with other jumper wires to zones 1 through 6 on the traditional panel, tapping into those sensors. Now it's important you want to connect those jumpers to the high side of the panel, and if you look at the wiring diagram, it'll tell you which one is high and which one is low. And on other panels they're labeled, maybe zone 1 and common. So common would mean low, or ground would mean low. So we want to connect it to the high side or the zone side. And however, there's one exception. On these Ademco panels, there's an issue with zone 1. Zone 1 on the Ademco panels, and this only applies to the Ademco panels, or in this case a Safewatch Pro rebranded Ademco panel, Ademco VISTA. Zone 1 is a special circuit zone, which is typically reserved for smoke alarms, 2-wire smoke alarms. In this case, it actually has my entry doors on it, which is also fairly common, but the Konnected Alarm Panel Interface doesn't work on the VISTA Zone 1. So in this case, I'm fairly lucky I have 2 free zones. So what I would do is just move my Zone 1 sensors over to Zone 7. And then we may be able to use Zone 1 for something else, but that will kind of work around the system, and then we'll have to go and reprogram Zone 1 to move it to Zone 7 if we want to keep that sensor intact. But this only applies to the Ademco VISTA panels, and basically the long story short of it is that Konnected doesn't work on Zone 1 on the VISTA panel, so you'll either have to relocate that zone or work around it by moving another zone that's less important to Zone 1. Zone 1 on the VISTA panel is terminals 8 and 9. So let's loosen those up real quick. And as is typical on a wire alarm system, you may find these resistors at the end of the wire in the panel. And oftentimes they may be installed at the sensors. They're actually supposed to be installed in the walls behind the sensors, although a lot of installers put them here in the panel, as is in this case. The traditional security guys who actually know what they're doing would look at this in disgust, because what these resistors are intended for is to measure the resistance on the or create resistance on the line so that the panel can measure for tampers, like a short circuit in the wire. And if they're installed here in the panel, they really do no good. They're supposed to be installed at the end of the line. In this case, we're going to just leave them because the Konnected Alarm Panel Interface module works with pretty much any resistance value, and we're going to leave them as they are. So if you do have resistors in line, leave them where they are. And then we're going to relocate this to zone 7, which is 18 and 19, and 18 is the high side. So let's do that. Now let's hook up the connected board. I've got a ribbon of 6 jumpers here, and I'm just going to connect zones 1 through 6 and then connect it to the high side of each zone. There we go. I've got my ribbon of 6 jumpers connected to 1 through 6 on the interface module, and now we're going to connect the other ends to the high side of 6 zones on this panel, starting with zone 2, because I moved zone 1 to zone 7. So these will go in the high side, and we just literally jam them in there and basically piggyback on the sensor that's already in place. So if you loosen that screw just a little bit, you should be able to get the tip of that jumper in there without disturbing the wire that's already in place, and then tighten it back down. All right, that's it. We've got the 6 zones connected to 6 zones on the panel. We've got our ribbon connector connected to the alarm panel over here. Now before we plug it in, let's make sure that the alarm panel board itself is mounted. We don't want any of those contacts on the back touching any of the metal. We do have these magnetic standoffs that are actually a really cool accessory. These are sold separately for a couple bucks. I have a set here, and these make it really easy to mount this board on the metal can on the top of it, on the side, or even on the door, and be able to reposition it so you don't have to have it permanently positioned. So I'm going to put those in real quick into the mounting holes here. Okay, I've got the magnetic standoffs on my alarm panel, and I'm going to just set it up on here. Now these terminals on the alarm panel are going to remain empty because we're using it with the interface module. If we were to replace the existing alarm system, then the sensor wires would go directly in here, but they can't be used simultaneously. If we're using it with the interface module, then these will remain empty and the wire connections will go on the interface board. So I'm going to just mount this up here, and we power this guy with the power adapter that came with your kit. All right, let's power back on the alarm system by plugging it back in. And then reconnecting that backup battery. And now we'll use the connected power adapter. I have a plug nearby, so this is no big deal. If you don't have a plug nearby, you can also pull 12 volts from this aux power output. We sell a pigtail cable as kind of an accessory, where you just connect the red to the aux plus and the black to the aux minus, and you can use that to power your connected device most of the time. Some panels have a limited amount of current that can come out of that device or out of that auxiliary output. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But most of the time, the connected alarm boards do pull very little amount of current, so it should be fine. But it's easier to use the power adapter in most cases. So I'll plug that in too, and then power up my connected board, and the interface module automatically receives power. Let's zoom in there, and you should be able to see it's now lit up with those orange LEDs. There's a LED indicator under zone 1, 2, 3, 4 under these little tunable potentiometers, and that's what we're going to use to tune the system to basically make it work so it can dial into that resistance level for this particular panel. There's 4 or 6 orange LEDs for the 6 zones on the connected interface module, and the orange LED should light up. It's illuminated when the circuit is closed, and we want it to turn off when the circuit is open. So for this step, you may need a partner or a friend to go around the house and open your doors and windows to get to that right threshold. And above each LED, there's a little dial. It's called a potentiometer. Okay, we're going to use the Phillips head tip of the connected screwdriver to very, very gently, with very gentle pressure, put it in one of these tunable dials and twist it to dial in that resistance. Don't apply much pressure here because these things are quite fragile, and the tips can strip very easily. They're just made out of plastic. So I don't know if you can see this clearly in the video, but as I tune this counterclockwise, that LED went out. Did you see that? So what we're trying to do is tune it just to that threshold. Right now this is the door should be closed, so the light is on, and then if I open that door, that light should go off. So typically the way we do this is we're going to just tune it back and forth while knowing that the door is closed, and get right to that threshold where the light is on. And if it goes off, then dial it back a little bit so it's on. And dial it back a little bit so it's on. That one's off. Now dial it back a little bit so it's on. And now it's off. Dial it back a little bit so it's on. Now I'll have a partner go downstairs, open each zone, door and window, to verify that the light turns off when that circuit is open. Now if your system doesn't have resistors installed at all, then likely you'll need to tune it all the way counterclockwise, and you may not see the light go off while tuning it. That's okay. If there are no resistors at all, just tune it all the way counterclockwise. The light will stay on when the door is closed, and then have a partner go around the house, open each door, or or trigger the motion sensor, and when it's open or triggered, you should see the light go off. Now that we're all wired up, it's time for the fun part and to go test it. Now we have to program it with our home automation platform. In this case, I'm using our new SmartThings integration, and we just have to tell the connected app which zone goes to which door. I've got my zone 1 on the connected panel, which is my patio door. Zone 2 on the connected panel, which is going to my motion sensors, actually zone 3 on the traditional system. And then I've got zone 3, which is going to my downstairs windows. So let me set that up and hit save. All right, now I'll sync that to the device, and when I do that, you should see the blue light blink on this panel. That means it's receiving its synchronization. So now let's go downstairs and test this out and make sure that it actually works. Okay, first let's check that motion sensor. This is pretty easy to test. So if I start walking around, we should see it detect that motion. There it is, motion detected. And let's see, there it is in the corner of my wall with that blue light going. And you see it's pretty much real time showing up on the SmartThings app when motion is detected. Let's check that the patio door is working now. I've got that set up here in SmartThings. And as soon as I open the patio door, you hear the beep from the traditional system, and it updates here as well. Alright, so that about wraps it up for this video. I've showed you how to connect the Konnected Alarm Panel Interface module with the 2nd generation Konnected Alarm Panel Wi-Fi board so that you can tap into all of the sensors on your traditional 6-zone wired alarm system and sync those status real time to a smart home automation platform like SmartThings or Home Assistant. In the next video in this series, I'll show you how to do a little bit of panel programming so that we can set programmable outputs and also use a relay module as a key switch to remotely arm and disarm the system. But that's for next time. Talk to you soon. Bye.